Often human beings groan about an imperfect world. Why is it that there are so many apparently inbuilt inherent problems? Maybe as a child, your parents told you, "Dear, please finish all the food on your plate because there are so many starving human beings in the world." Let's talk about the food situation. Now, those familiar with the Bhakti Yoga texts, such as Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, know a fundamental axiom of living in higher consciousness. Nature responds according to the consciousness of the human beings. Of course, there are so many other creatures on this planet besides human beings. But human beings are unique in that they have the developed consciousness to understand what is the self, what is the source of everything, and the relationship between the two. So when human beings neglect the gift of advanced consciousness, and when they misuse their potential by forgetting what is the real goal in life, the Bhakti texts describe how nature will restrict the supply of resources, and it's providing optimal conditions for humanity to flourish in. When we talk about starving people, it's time to point the finger at the real culprits. Not nature, but humanity as a whole. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization has pointed out that approximately 1/3 of all the food produced in the world is wasted. I've been just studying the facts because often I'm questioned about it when I'm speaking at universities. How could a benign supreme allow that so many go without even the basics, such as food? Well, let's hear about that. Actually, that same United Nations organizations pointed out that simply the amount of food wasted in the first world alone could feed all the almost 1 billion starving humans. And then we look at the USA, where indeed 1/3 of all food never makes it past the retail outlets and the consumer. Never makes it past them in terms of being eaten. Instead, it's thrown out, discarded, wasted. But the problem doesn't end there. Okay, 1/3 is wasted by retail outlets, supermarkets, grocery stores, what have you, and the consumers. But if you include in that amount the food that's wasted by it's just being left to rot in the fields or warehouses, then the statistic climbs to 1/2 of all food produced in the USA. And that's important to know because the USA is famous as the most efficient industrialized agricultural nation. Yet we see that when 1/2 of all the food you produce is wasted, something is horribly wrong with the system. Landfills. You may wonder, what actually goes inside a landfill. At least in the USA, discarded food is the greatest component of landfills, and incinerators also. Consumers want blemish-free produce. They're concerned with the cosmetics of the food. Unfortunately, they're not so concerned with the nutrition. Therefore, any food that has a blemish is often left to rot in the fields, or it's discarded when it reaches the supermarkets. Eventually, it all winds up in landfills. It's dumped. The food is perfectly nutritious, perfectly healthy, but it doesn't look cute. Therefore, it's destroyed. Here you have an enormous environmental problem also. Just think of all the resources required to produce the food, the water, the fertilizers. Think of all the fuel expended to transport the food, process it. And then, when the food is in the landfills, it just doesn't stay there nice and inactive. No, it produces methane gas, a potent problem for climate change. Actually, if you take the food in all the world's landfills combined, that would become the number 3 source of pollutants in the atmosphere, behind the USA and China. So we have some serious problems. Not only are we wasting perfectly good food that could easily solve the world's hunger problems, but we're also, in the process, destroying our own environment. Yet we want to blame the Supreme. How could there be a just and glorious God when there are so many starving persons in the world? Humans, it's time to face the facts and take the full blame.